Here it is, WCW Revenge, my favourite of all the Aki games, and that includes WWF No Mercy. If you watch my WrestleMania 2000 video, then you'll understand why I enjoy Revenge so much, even though it was surpassed by WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy in terms of graphics, modes and gameplay. I know subsequent Aki games had more to offer, but Revenge was the game I spent the most time with, and it's a game I have great memories of in regards to multiplayer. Besides my personal feelings though, this is the quintessential World Championship Wrestling video game. The WCW game for NES wasn't great, the unreleased UWC game is interesting, but it's still an NES wrestling game at the end of the day. The main event on Game Boy wasn't bad as far as handheld games go, but it still doesn't come recommended. Super Brawl on Super Nintendo is unintentionally hilarious and a game I will cover soon, but yeah, it's not for me. And then we had WCW vs. the World on PlayStation 1 and WCW World Tour on N64. The PS1 game was decent, but World Tour on N64 blew it out of the water thanks to having a much tighter and more refined grapple system in place. Let's not forget about WCW Nitro. Nitro was released on PlayStation 1 about 10 months before WCW Revenge. While the roster for that game was good, matches could be pretty chaotic thanks to some serious messy gameplay and button combinations that half of the time didn't work. Once you played Nitro on PS1, you quickly realised you needed an N64 if you wanted the best WCW game up until this point, and at that very time, WCW vs nWo World Tour was still king of the mountain. But because World Tour was developed alongside its Japanese counterpart, Virtual Pro Wrestling 64, it kinda had to share its identity with a game that wasn't based on World Championship Wrestling alone. VPW included wrestlers from All Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, FMW, Michinoku Pro, and others. And while it's fantastic that a game exists that features so many wrestlers from different organizations, it also meant the WCW brand itself was kinda limited within the game. Revenge completely fixes this identity issue by giving fans a pure WCW game that separates itself from World Tour thanks to its excellent presentation, excellent use of source material, and gameplay that exceeds its predecessor in every single way. Let's check out WCW Revenge and let me explain why this is my favourite wrestling game of all time. Revenge was released in October 98 in North America and November 98 in Europe. THQ showed the game off at the 1998 European Computer Trade Show along with Rugrats Scavenger Hunt. Revenge was much closer to completion though, and folks were able to see a build of the game that was said to be around 85% complete. The following month, THQ announced that the World Tour cartridge size was doubled for WCW Revenge, all to allow more wrestlers to be included in the game. And IGN posted an extensive list of new features the game was set to include, making WCW Revenge almost too good to be true when compared to every other wrestling game on the market. Among these new features included 700 frames of animation per wrestler, 300 unique wrestling moves, real pay-per-view arenas, over 80 wrestlers to choose from, although all these weren't WCW or nWo guys, and the costume edit mode from VPW 64 was also set to be included. One feature that was advertised but wasn't actually available in the final build was the ability to track wins and losses for each individual superstar, but that's fine, we still had high scores in the final game. IGN also posted the official roster before the game got released and it looked incredibly good. The roster was finalized just before the summer of 1998, so we have the company represented by wrestlers fighting on TNT at the height of the Monday Night Wars. Sting, Hogan, Nash, Hall, Luger, Goldberg, DDP, Raven, Jericho, Bret, pretty much anyone you'd want to play as was represented in the game, except for El Dandy. Ric Flair did not make the cut. He and Bischoff had not settled their legal dispute when the roster got finalized, so no Slick Rick unfortunately. And another guy who didn't get included in the game, but he was mentioned as a playable character before release, was Wrath. The data for Wrath is still in the game though, and he is selectable through a GameShark code. There was a slight delay getting copies shipped to stores in North America, but gamers and pro wrestling fans alike were very eager to get their hands on this one. Remember, WWF fans were still playing Warzone when this bad boy hit the shelves.
What?
First, the intro video. If you know, you know. How many times would you just let this whole thing play out before starting your first round of exhibition matches? From the guy with Ming's face driving the truck to Sting looking all moody and shit. From the nWo talking trash backstage to the action inside the ring. Is this a contender for best opening to a wrestling game ever? I'd say it is for sure, but at the same time, I'm biased. The music during the intro is brilliant too, as is the music throughout the entire game. You guys who watch Reliving the War every week can put 2 and 2 together here, and you guys would already know how much I love the Revenge soundtrack. Getting into the game's main menu, and admittedly, it's bare bones. It's even more bare than World Tour, but don't worry, the real content of Revenge is inside the ring. With Revenge having no Japanese counterpart, no Japanese rosters, and with the game not even getting translated for a release in Japan, Aki were able to dedicate absolutely everything about this game to WCW, and it shows in the main menu. Whatever arena you wrestled in last, you'll see its entranceway as you select a game mode, and this status saves when turning off the console, so you'll always remember where your last epic battle took place. Modes are limited. You've got Championship mode, an Exhibition mode, Special Match mode that lets you pick Battle Royals or Handicap matches, and you've also got Costume Change mode along with some options. Costume Change mode is more or less the same as VPW64 here, and you'll be able to change the attires and colours of those attires for your favourite superstars. Each wrestler has 4 costume slots, so if you want to give everyone in the game an nWo shirt, you're more than welcome to do so. Exhibitions are basic, you can only play singles or tags here. As mentioned, Battle Royals and Handicap matches are available in the special menu, but it's worth noting too the cage matches were once considered for this game, but they didn't make the final cut. A Game Shark code brings back the graphic for cage matches, and the graphic replaces handicap matches, but if you start a game with this code, you'll just play a regular 2-on-1 match. Championship modes where you'll unlock new superstars, but we'll talk about this mode in just a moment. First, let's take a look at the roster, the very best WCW roster that's ever been included in a video game. There's 4 rosters within the game: nWo Black and White, nWo Wolfpac, Raven's Flock, and WCW. The cover of the game featured members of each of these rosters, and it's pretty awesome that Raven got included in the cover alongside the company's big boys. The Black and White roster has guys like Hogan, Giant, Buff Bagwell, and Scott Norton. The Wolfpac features Sting, Nash, Conan, and Randy Savage. Raven's Flock is where you'll find Raven, Kidman, Scotty Riggs, and Big Reese's Pieces. Van Hammer and Perry Saturn are also in the game, but when the roster was finalised, these lads had already left Raven's Flock. And the WCW roster features guys like DDP, Goldberg, Roddy Piper, Ming, Disco Inferno, and Alex Wright. Bret Hart's here as a WCW guy, even though he was associated with the nWo during this time period. He's even seen with the nWo squad during the video's intro. And there's another subsection of the WCW roster that's filled with cruiserweights and luchadors. We once again have fictional wrestlers in a WCW game. These guys have movesets based on wrestlers working in Japan, but their appearance varies greatly. And then we have the legend himself, Aki Man and his alter ego THQ Man. Seriously, this dude plays brilliantly in the game. He's a lot of fun to control. All in all, it's a fantastic roster, and if you've been following the Reliving the War series, then you'll notice that everyone you'd expect is represented here. Entrances were not available in World Tour, but we have them here in Revenge. Granted, it's an animation pose at the entranceway followed by another in the ring, but it's better than nothing, and technically still more than what WWF No Mercy would offer in the future. Certain wrestlers have managers and valets, with many of these being unselectable as playable characters. If you want to play as a manager, press the Z button on the 3rd or 4th controller while a manager stands outside the ring. The first thing that really grabbed me when starting my first game of WCW Revenge all those years ago was how well the arena and ring looked. Nitro, Sold Out, Super Brawl, Bash at the Beach, Halloween Havoc, and Starrcade are all selectable in the game, and each setup looks different from one another. This is something I really liked because, well, put it this way, look at Warzone. Every match looked the exact same in Warzone, and it felt like the ring was just dumped in a wide open space with no character and no personality. It looks dull in comparison to the vibrant arenas found in WCW Revenge. The audience in Revenge also feels closer to the ring, it looks more exciting, and you gotta give it to Aki for how they captured the look and feel of actual WCW events. Back then, this was incredible for wrestling fans who wanted something that actually represented the shows they watched on TV. World Tour dropped the ball when it came to WCW venues, but that's because it wasn't strictly a WCW game. In Revenge, Aki totally made up for it though, and now you can relive classic Nitro matches or pay-per-view main events. Something you just couldn't do in previous games with this level of authenticity. Now, gameplay, this is where things get good. Whereas WCW vs nWo World Tour had a lot of guys who played very similar to each other, Aki made sure to make each and every wrestler in Revenge feel unique. One way they accomplished this was through new taunts that were taken directly from what the developers saw on TV. And another way Aki accomplished this uniqueness was by creating new updated move animations made specifically for individual wrestlers. For example, Lex Luger's got his running forearm shot, something he'd do in almost every match, and only Luger can do this move in the game. Whereas Chris Benoit was given his hook clothesline, a move that he too would do frequently when wrestling on TV. In World Tour, both Benoit and Luger would have been given the same running clothesline and fans would have been happy with it. But in Revenge, these new animations made all the difference when playing as certain wrestlers. More care was taken when it came to special moves. For example, Nash's jackknife powerbomb looks way more authentic this time around, and going back to Benoit for a moment, I was absolutely addicted to pulling off his crossface from an Irish whip because he'd performed the arm trap beforehand. And just the feel of pulling off moves in Revenge, it's so satisfying. Those of you who have played the game will know exactly what I'm talking about, and it's so hard to explain to those who have never experienced it before. But trust me, although it's overall very simplistic, there's still something really great about laying someone out with a Scorpion Death Drop or launching your opponent high in the air before dropping him with a Diamond Cutter. Away from this, Aki also tweaked and enhanced the fundamentals to make the game better than its predecessor in almost every single way. Small things were fixed, such as the ability to bring a weapon into the ring and the ability to trigger your spirit meter anytime you wanted, so long as your spirit meter was flashing red. There's also more moves available at your disposal, more defensive moves to help you counter, dodge, or avoid your opponent altogether. Mark Curtis is also here as our referee. He's represented by a cartoon drawn, and it's great to have WCW's greatest ever official immortalized in the game. The heart of Revenge lies in its gameplay, no two ways about it. But let's take a look at the other modes on offer because, well, it won't take very long. In Championship mode, you'll fight for the TV, US Cruiserweight Tag and World Championships. Winning a belt will unlock some new wrestlers, those being Kurt Hennig, Billy Kidman, The Faces of Fear, Chris Kanyon and Roddy Piper. Championship mode, your basic arcade mode where you just fight a bunch of guys one after another, but there is a little replay value in the scoring system. Not only does Revenge score your exhibition matches and save those to a table, but your whole championship run will also get scored, so you can always try going back to fill that high score table with nothing but your name. Admittedly, there's not much else to do really. The special matches are just more exhibition matches, so once you're done winning all the belts, you're either going to edit a bunch of superstar costumes or you're heading back into exhibition mode. But again, this is absolutely fine because playing matches in this game with its huge WCW and nWo roster is where all the fun is really. For sure, it would have been nice to have some sort of career mode similar to WrestleMania 2000, and I've often thought having No Mercy story mode with Revenge's roster would have been the ultimate wrestling game for me, but beggars can't be choosers either. My buddy got Revenge about a month or two after it came out, and those high score tables were ours to dominate. We spent so much time beating our old scores that at one point we needed to play nearly hour-long matches just in hopes of getting ranked somewhere near the bottom. We got addicted to those high score tables, and if we were playing against each other, we'd have to agree not to try to pin or submit each other for at least 45 minutes. That's how bad it got. Some of my favourite best memories are tied up in Revenge thanks to its multiplayer mode. 4-player was also loads of fun with tag team matches and battle royals causing chaos both in and out of the game, and it's those memories that make this the best wrestling game ever for me. I talked about this already in my WrestleMania 2000 upload, but if you watch that video you'd know where I'm coming from here. Revenge may not be known universally as the best wrestling game ever, but for me it certainly is. Right, modders, you lovely people. The folks who dig deep into these games are the true heroes of the community, and it was a discovery made by a certain individual on Twitter that made me look into revenge mods and hacks that expand upon an already brilliant game. Melonbread1979 has been posting some really interesting facts and tidbits about the Aki games for a long time, and learning about what goes on in the background while playing these games fascinates me a great deal. Melonbread found something really interesting in Revenge though, and that was running special moves. In WCW nWo Revenge, running grapple moves aren't possible, but by digging through the game code, this modder found that Aki had once considered having running special moves included in the game, but it was cut out for reasons unknown. By using the GameShark code, we can add running special moves back in. DDP can perform a running diamond cutter, which means in total Paige has 4 variants of the diamond cutter included in this game. So obviously I wanted to show you guys this in today's video, and that led me to Virtual Pro Wrestling Salvo, a mod of Revenge that not only includes all the running special moves that were previously inaccessible, but it also includes new roster additions that I think you guys will get a kick out of. VPW Salvo was developed by Ragdaz, a well-respected modder in the community from what I can tell, who also released other mods including La Fin de Tour, Summit VPW and WCW nWo Revenge. His VPW Salvo mod includes the running special moves as previously mentioned, but he's also included Ric Flair and nWo Sting, a character who does exist on the original cartridge but was dummied out of the final game. A WWF roster has also been included, taking assets from future Aki games and bringing them back to Revenge, and all the fictional characters from Revenge have been given their true identities, which means we can now play as Kenta Kobashi, Steve Williams, Jumbo Tsuruta and others. This mod will also work on your Nintendo 64 console via a NeverDrive cartridge, and as a matter of fact, you probably want to play it on an actual console because, well, from what I've gathered reading the mod description, Ragdaz has pushed Revenge to its very limit by adding these new additions, and for some reason N64 emulators don't like it too much. If more than 2 characters are on screen while playing on an emulator, the game suffers from slowdown, but when playing on a console, this problem seems to disappear. So if you've got the means to play this on original hardware, then that's definitely the way to go. It might even play better with a 64 DD, but I unfortunately don't have that particular add-on to experiment with. Don't let this slowdown hinder your perception of this mod though. The author said that he made this mod for himself really, and it was more of a one thing leads to another type of deal, which would see him adding more and more new things as development progressed. There's a certain amount of downgrading going on too when you think about improvements made in future Aki games. The People's Elbow, for example, just isn't possible in Revenge due to the initial pose and run animations not being available yet, whereas this kind of animation sequence, among others, wouldn't be possible until WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy. The fact that this modder took the time to be as strategic as possible when it came to what could and couldn't be included is worthy of praise in itself, because this isn't as simple as copying all the data from one game and pasting it into another. There's a shit ton of work here that's way beyond my comprehension, and I'm just glad folks are still working on these games to provide us with new features and new wrestlers. This is a great mod. I only started playing it to see the running specials, but I quickly found myself having those 1998 Monday Night War fantasy matches that we all talked about at one point or another. And the great thing is, there's still a lot more for these guys to discover, and there's things that have been discovered that still need put into playable builds of the game. If you appreciate any of this stuff the way I do, or if you're just curious about how it all works, give guys like Ragdaz and Melonbread1979 a follow on Twitter. It's still amazing to me that we're finding out new things about this game some 25 years later. It's kinda bittersweet going back to WCW Revenge all these years later. It's so much fun playing the game again, and seeing as I just covered this era and reliving the war, my memory's razor sharp in regards to the taunts that are used, the attires the developers selected, and the moves each wrestler performs in the ring. At the same time, that was 25 years ago. Games in general look a lot better now. I don't hang out with those same old friends I once did, and I no longer have the time to sit up until the early hours to put my name all over a high score table. I could do it if I really wanted to, but I know I wouldn't get the same feeling of accomplishment anymore because, well, it feels kinda pointless now. Through work, responsibilities, bills to pay, appointments to attend, anytime I get a chance to play a game nowadays, I'm stealing half an hour here and and there, and I feel that time would probably be spent better playing other games. I recently bought Final Fantasy Rebirth for myself and I pre-ordered WWE 2K24, and I have absolutely no idea how and when I'll get a chance to play those. And you know, I kinda want to keep it that way when it comes to Revenge. Inside that cartridge holds a little time machine that I can put on and go back to the good times, back when there were no responsibilities and no worries. If I decided to play the game to death again, then I'm afraid that magic may disappear, so I'm going to leave it as it is and I'll play it again when I want that quick hit of nostalgia. Going through the comments in the WrestleMania 2000 video, I noticed that many of you guys feel the same way, not only about the Aki games, but for other games too, along with movies, music, TV shows, all that stuff. Things from the past that take you away from the stress of the present. Really, it's the kind of shit I live for, if I'm honest. I don't know why, but comforts from the past seem to work brilliantly for me when it comes to relaxing and turning my brain off for a while. And as silly as it sounds, that's really what WCW Revenge does for me. When you've got something that reminds you about the best times of your life, it's only natural to go back to it every once in a while. As long as it's not your crazy ex who began stalking you, or that time you overdosed at a friend's birthday party. I hope this video brought you back to those easier times, even if it was just for 20 minutes or so. Thank you for watching guys, and please take care.